Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Welcome to English Corner. In this lesson, we will talk about figures of speech based on contrast or dissimilarity. Figures of speech based on contrast or dissimilarity show contrast between ideas, clauses, words' meanings, or between surface and the deep meanings. Juxtapose contrastive features of these items. There are basically 8 types of figures of speech based on contrast. They are antithesis, paradox, epigram, irony, chiasmus, oxymoron, euphemism, and litotes. Let us have elaborate discussion on each of them. Antithesis, Greek word opposition. A striking opposition of contrast of words, ideas, or feelings is made in the same sentence. For example, man proposes, God disposes. Men must work and women must weep. Many are called, but few are chosen. Speech is silver, but silence is gold. So you see that in each of these examples you have 2 clauses, and the second clause uses contrasting or opposite words. Paradox, Greek word paradoxon. Contrary to expectations, existing belief, or perceived opinion. So paradox expresses a seemingly absurd or contradictory statement or proposition which, when investigated, may prove to be well-founded or true. For example, my enemy's enemy is my friend. All animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. I must be cruel to be kind. The child is the father of man. So in this case, you see that there are 2 levels of meaning. And normally, the first meaning, the surface meaning, goes against our traditional belief. So at the beginning, we are not ready to accept this as a usual sentence, and it seems that it is something untrue. But there is an underlying meaning, and that underlying meaning is true. We can understand that if we think for say second, or if we think further, we can understand that the underlying meaning is really true. The next type is epigram, Greek epigramma, meaning inscription or to inscribe. Epigram refers to a pithy saying or remark expressing an idea in a clever and amusing way. It is a memorable, brief, interesting, witty, and surprising satirical statement. And epigrams point out foibles, that is weaknesses, and truths of mankind. For example, mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. If we don't end war, war will end us. It is better to light a candle than curse the darkness. Live simply so that others may simply live. Epigrams serve the same purpose as maxims and proverbs do. Epigrams leave a positive impression on the audience. They demonstrate pure humor coupled with wisdom. And they cause us to think deeply about their statements. The surface meaning is true, but presented in an amusing, unusual way. So the difference between paradox and epigram is that in paradox, there are 2 levels of meaning, and the underlying meaning is true, but in epigram, the surface meaning is true, but this is presented in an amusing and unusual way. Next one is irony. Irony refers to the expression of one meaning by using language that normally signifies the opposite, typically for humorous or emphatic effect. It states a state of affairs or an event that seems deliberately contrary to what one expects and is often wryly amusing as a result. So you expect something, but you find that, to your surprise, just opposite things take place. Irony is a literary technique originally used in the Greek tragedies by which the full significance of a character's words or actions is clear to the audience or readers, although unknown to the character. So the character does not know a truth that the audience or the readers already know. Let us have some examples of irony. I'm sure that you remember Luncheon, this short story Luncheon, where the lady guest says, "I never eat more than one thing for luncheon," but the lady guest eats more than half a dozen of dishes. Water, water everywhere, and all the boats did shrink. Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. In Coleridge's Rime of the Ancient Mariner, water is everywhere, but there is not a drop to drink. So you see a contrastive or an opposition between the situation, the expectation, what is said, and what they really mean. Irony refers to where words are used in such a way that their intended meaning is different from the actual meaning of the words. There are two types of irony, verbal and situational. Verbal irony refers to the state when something is said to mean just the opposite. For example, his friend's hand was as soft as a rock. Of course, here the soft does not mean soft, but soft means hard as a rock. Situational irony. In situational irony, opposite or unexpected situation occurs. For example, the plot of Maupassant's entire story, The Necklace. I'm sure that you remember the plot of Necklace, where a lady, Mathilda, borrows a necklace from her friend, and consequently she loses the necklace, and she thought that the necklace is very expensive, but she cannot tell her friend well, so that is why she and her husband underwent a lot of miseries to manage money to buy a new necklace for her friend. She met her friend, and she is informed that that particular necklace had been indeed an imitation. So you see what they thought, Matilda and her husband thought, and what the necklace was really. Another important type of irony, dramatic irony, which is a stylistic device commonly found in plays, movies, theaters, and sometimes in poetry. It is a useful plot device for creating situations in which the audience knows more about the situations, the causes of conflicts, and their resolutions before the leading characters or actors. The speech of the actors takes on unusual meanings. For instance, the audience knows that a character is going to be murdered or will commit suicide, which they are not aware of. Hence, the words and the actions of the characters would suggest a different meaning to the audience from what they indicate to the characters and the story. The next type of figure of speech based on dissimilarity is chiasmus. It is a rhetorical or literary figure in which words, grammatical constructions, or concepts are repeated in reverse order. So there is a repetition of the words or grammatical constructions or the concepts, but in reverse order. Two or more clauses are balanced against each other by the reversal of their structures in order to produce an artistic effect. The grammar of one phrase sometimes is inverted in the following phrase, such that two key concepts from the original phrase reappear in the second phrase in inverted order. For example, bad men live that they may eat and drink, whereas good men eat and drink that they may live. I may be as bad as the worst, but thank God I am as good as the best. There is another figure of speech which is called antithesis, which is almost similar like chiasmus, but in antithesis, a phrase is repeated but with the order of words reversed. For example, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Oxymoron. In oxymoron, two opposite ideas are joined to create an effect. Normally it is a combination of an adjective followed by a noun with contrasting meanings. For example, cruel, kindness, adjective plus noun. Living, death. Open, secret. Original copies, liquid gas. The contrasting ideas may be expressed in a sentence, such as, in order to lead, you must walk behind. So lead and walk behind, they are in contrasting position. They have contrasting meanings. There is difference between oxymoron and paradox. A paradox may consist of a sentence or even a group of sentences. On the other hand, an oxymoron is a combination of two contradictory or opposite words. A paradox seems contradictory to the general truth, but it does contain an implied truth. An oxymoron, however, may produce a dramatic effect, but does not make literal sense. Euphemism. Euphemism is another figure of speech where polite, indirect expressions replace words and phrases which are harsh and impolite, suggesting something unpleasant. It is an idiomatic expression which loses its literal meanings and refers to something else in order to hide its unpleasantness, to mitigate immediate serious harmful effect. For example, if father of your friend has died, and if you want to tell him that your father has died, it might cause serious or harmful effect on him. That is why we say, okay, your father is very ill, so you should come home as early as possible. So passes out is a euphemism that describes the death of a person. You are becoming a little thin on top. That is a bald head. So without saying you are a bald head, you say that you are becoming a little thin on top. So it is an indirect expression to mitigate immediate serious and harmful effect. The last one is litotes. It is an ironic understatement in which an affirmative is expressed by the negative of its contrary. For example, I shan't be sorry, for I shall be glad. So you are expressing an affirmative one, you are emphasizing an affirmation, but by negating its contrary. It employs an understatement by using double negatives, or in other words, a positive. It is a form of verbal irony in which unpleasant is used to emphasize a point by stating a negative to further affirm a positive, often incorporating double negatives for effect. For example, the ice cream was not too bad. That is, the ice cream was good. New York is not an ordinary city. Your comments on politics are not useless. $1 million is no small amount. Let us have a summary of all the types of figures of speech, or all the figures of speech based on contrast. In antithesis, you have two contradictory clauses in the same sentence. In paradox, the statement has two levels of meaning. On the surface, it contradicts the general truth or normal belief, traditional belief, but the underlying truth or underlying one is true if it is thought about. In epigram, the surface meaning is true, but this is presented in a very witty, surprising, and satirical way. In irony, opposite meaning is indicated, event, action contrary to expectations. In chiasmus, reversal of structures is used. In oxymoron, opposite ideas are combined using an adjective followed by a noun. In euphemism, a polite, indirect expressions are used for harsh and impolite and unpleasant one. And in litotes, an affirmation is expressed by negating the opposite. Thank you very much for watching. May Allah keep all of us safe and sound. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.